We have more beaches than them too, right? Don't we?
Right.
We're a much bigger country.
We don't want a marine invasion and occupation of the United States that constantly decapitates governments and takes the money out of the country and saddles us with
we don't want the Clintons
debt
either.
from a revolution. Yeah.
Right. Although I don't. So you're saying that
we wouldn't want to be like basically a colony that the entire West spends 200 years punishing after the Haitian Revolution.
I get that. I understand that, but also at a certain
we wouldn't want that. No, yes.
We wouldn't want that, but I would also say that that's not entirely why Haiti's in the position that it's in. I mean, at a certain point, as a country, you have to stand on your own 2 feet and take care of yourself. And
but at what point is that? They elect Aristide and we overthrow Aristide. Then they elect Jovenel Moïse. Jovenel Moïse is assassinated a bunch of people with American connections, and then we install in 2021, like the United States installed the prime minister that we just ousted. Like, so we could say, okay, yeah, you got to get over the 200 years ago, but like we're still doing it.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm not in favor of. I'm very non-interventionist in my policies, so I'm not in favor of most of the things that we're doing in other countries.
We just made the new government in Haiti in a hotel room in Jamaica, and then we insisted that whatever government we made in Jamaica had to allow Kenyan troops to come in under the flag of the UN in order to go to war with the gangs.
Yeah, I'm not. Look, I'm not interested in. Right. If it were up to me, I'm not interested in doing anything in Haiti. Like let Haiti be Haiti and take care of them. That's sort of my whole point here. Let them take care of themselves and their own problems. I'm also not saying that there's like never a scenario where we would let someone from Haiti into the country. But it doesn't have to just be about Haiti. But when you're throwing open the gates and just inviting anyone, in particular, the third world.
I guess your assumption there was that it is Haitian people that are creating the conditions on Haiti, and that if the Haitian people come to Springfield, they will recreate the conditions
but I don't think you
Haiti in Springfield, whereas what I'm saying is that it's actually the U.S. that is.
I don't think you can entirely put it on.
Largely.
But it's still a country comprised of people, right?
But without its own autonomy.
But you can't. I don't think you can entirely put it on the United States. Like, the Haitian people have nothing to do whatsoever with the state of their own country. Nothing. I mean, I think that's a bit absurd. I'm perfectly willing to, as I said, agree that a lot of the United States sort of adventurism and interventions in other countries has been unwise, and I'd prefer for us to focus on our own country and not try to build governments in other countries. But at the same time, I think that you can't completely absolve the people of any country of the problem, just like in this country. The problems that we have in our country, we can point to the government, we can point to immigration, we point to all those things. But ultimately, like, the people of the country have to be responsible for their own nation. And I say that of all nations.
For the next one, Emily, I thought our interview with Don Lemon was so interesting for how uninteresting it was. Like, it was profoundly and fascinatingly uninteresting.
I remember wrapping that interview and just looking at you and producer Mac and be like, this guy wants to go back to CNN, right? Like, he's doing independent media and talking about how great it is, but he wants to go back to CNN.
Is he going to make it back to CNN?
I don't know. I mean, they've brought Brian Stelter back. And by the
way,
this is like one of the Don Lemon one. I saw this on our plans for talking about some of our favorite clips from Counterpoints over the last year. I was like, we had Don Lemon on in the last year. It seems like it was so long ago. But we also had Brian Stelter on, lest we forget, two of CNN's most buzzy personalities over the course of the Trump years, neither of which was with CNN anymore. And then Stelter came back, obviously, but both of them seem to want to be going back to CNN, which is interesting. I mean, it's almost like you can't teach an old dog new tricks.
But I thought Lemon was so interesting because he was such an influential media figure, and it was really interesting to get a window into how he sees the world. So let's roll a little Don Lemon here.
I have a question on that, actually, because I don't think either of us is interested in getting into any drama with your old network, but I do think the Nikki Haley comment, I found it hilarious, frankly, but we don't have to get into it. All I want to say is, was that an excuse to purge you? Do you feel like do you think that your former colleagues cared deeply about Nikki Haley's feelings, or do you think that was sort of a fig leaf to start purging maybe allies of Jeff Zucker? What's your read on that whole situation? Because you did, I think, apologized for it, and everything sort of spiraled from there. It seemed like, from the outside at least.
Look at my face.
In your prime.
I will let your comments stand. If you think, I think that you are a very smart woman, and I will just let it stand.
In her prime,
Sounds
no
good.
doubt, right?
Of course.
One of the criticisms I had of CNN over the years is around its coverage of the kind of left wing of the Democratic Party, and in particular, missing the kind of the energy behind the 2016 Bernie Sanders campaign, and then missing it again the second time around. Like, 2020, Bernie Sanders almost seized the nomination. And it seemed to catch the media flat-footed both times. I'm curious what your editorial meetings were like throughout 2016 and 2020, or was there just so much Trump that there just wasn't kind of the oxygen for the Democratic primaries?
Well, I want to make sure I understand what you're saying, Brian. What are you asking me, that you think that Bernie Sanders wasn't given his due in traditional media? Is that what you're saying?
And let me tell you a little story about that real quick. Like, so in February of 2020, you remember Rebecca Cutler, the old head of CNN talent? Mm-hmm. She reached out to or somehow we got connected. I was still at The Intercept, but I was at The Intercept at the time, and she said, "Look, we have really missed the boat on covering the left wing of the Democratic Party. Like, we need people who have covered that before and who understand this rising progressive energy." And so CNN brought me in and said, "Look, we need to get you on some of these programs because we need somebody, who can speak to this obviously now rising energy within the Democratic Party." And then that happened a couple times, and then Bernie lost the South Carolina primary and got wiped out on Super Tuesday. And they said, "Actually, never mind, we're good. Like, we don't need to worry about this kind of progressive wing. Maybe in 4 years if it bubbles back up." But there was a fear inside CNN, reflected through Rebecca's outreach, that they had missed something fundamental about the country that was represented by the rise of Bernie Sanders.
I don't know what conversation you had with Rebecca, who I know, and so I won't get into that. But I think if there was any outreach for you to cover something that was happening in the news or the zeitgeist politically, I think that Rebecca should be commended for recognizing that. The second part is that I've never heard anybody say that CNN should be more left. So, hey, there's a first time for everything. I didn't necessarily think CNN was left. I thought that CNN was about facts. I think CNN has the best journalists in the world. But I also think, you asked me what my editorial meetings were like. I mean, no one was trying to push Bernie Sanders, and at least in my editorial meetings, and I would venture to speak for the network now. Well, I'll speak for myself. I don't think that anyone was trying to push Bernie Sanders out. I think that Bernie Sanders may have had sort of outsized influence with a certain segment of the Democratic Party. But all polls in 2016 pointed to Hillary Clinton. All polls in 2020 and public sentiment pointed to Joe Biden. And so what was shocking, I think, to myself was the reaction from Democrats to the nomination of Hillary Clinton instead of Bernie Sanders in 16, especially in 2020. I couldn't get to gauge it because I didn't get to go to the conventions. I think that was around, because of COVID. But here's a shocking thing. So networks have editorial calls or meetings with campaigns, right, to figure out how you're going to cover the campaigns. In my experience, having those editorial calls and meetings with the Trump folks, they knew every single thing that was happening in the media. Every single thing that Don Lemon had ever said about Donald Trump, his folks knew about it. They knew where to place him. They knew who they wanted him to talk to. They knew who they wanted him to call into or do in-person interviews. By contrast, the Clinton campaign was so above it that, hey, they had no idea what I was saying about Hillary Clinton or whatever they were, she did not have as much media outreach. She got to pick and choose where she went, and rather than just doing what Donald Trump did. So listen, I think that the Hillary, but yet and still, the public wanted Hillary Clinton.